The lats, this muscle group is very important for overall back development. If someone sees you from behind, because you know people are watching your gains, they see it, they're not commenting on it, you should be developing this muscle group. It gets worked with all of the vertical and horizontal pulls that we do. The 45-degree range of challenging this position is underrated, and doing the pullover has been something really fun for me because I've traditionally come from just vertical pull-ups, just horizontal rows, and I've been missing that arc in between. And I want to choose an exercise that has a lot of progressibility. So I chose the dumbbell pullover.
Okay.
Now people are like, does this work lats? Does this work chest? The answer is, it works both. And it is a compound exercise for going through shoulder flexion to shoulder extension, challenging that motion. So the dumbbell pullover is going to challenge the chest, the lats, get some of the teres in there, and definitely the triceps too.
For sure.
It's involved. And depending on your technique, if your elbows are more bent, you'll be using a lot more triceps as shoulder extensors.
Yeah.
The straighter the elbows are, the triceps are just active as more of a stabilizer for the elbow joint. Can't contribute as much is what I've found with this one. And if the goal is lats with dumbbell pullovers, I find a tucked elbow, more externally rotated shoulder, makes it feel more lat biased. If you want to get more chest, a flared elbow technique tends to make you use that muscle group a bit more. Now, with the dumbbell pullover, people criticize it, oh, there's not constant tension in the exercise. The challenge is in the lengthened overhead stretch position. So when I do these, try and really milk the eccentric, that bottom part, because it's tempting when things are hard, you want to rush through the negative, you don't want to be getting into the difficult, so to speak. So I'm really mindful of controlling that negative every single time towards the end. If you wanted to make this more like a cable exercise, you can just stay in that end range and then pull the dumbbell up towards head height.
Yeah.
But in reality, it's hard exercise. So bring it just straight above you is completely fine. A mini rest pause before you go into the next exercise. And I feel it in my whole upper body, but I really do feel it challenging the lats. And for me, it's been really helpful for being stronger at the start of pull-ups, lat pull-downs, because you're initiating that strength in that position.
Yeah.
Builds overhead mobility because you're flexing the shoulders overhead, lengthening the lats eccentrically, which you don't get fully from a lot of other movements because you tend to disengage. I think this is a slept on exercise as well, and it's used to be a very popular old school exercise. Many different ways to do it. You can go cross bench or lengthways on bench. I like lying flat back on the bench just because it's a bit more consistent. I can try my best to keep my ribs down, and it tends to be more shoulder focused as the challenge tends to stay horizontal. If you lie with your back against the bench, it's a really good mobility exercise, opens the thoracic, rib cage expansion, all those benefits. But there's more cheating in terms of hips up, hips down, where are you ending? It gets very confusing.
Yeah, it's funny because there was maybe even just 5 years ago, pullovers were like, oh, but it's only working this little part. It's a bad exercise. And then now everyone's like, well, that's good. Like, that's what we want, right? And so I think, yeah, really, really good movement. I do them a little bit differently than you, or at least I have been, where I do have more elbow bend. I am getting more flare, and I am sort of getting a little bit more oomph as well. And so this is one of the ones that's can be humbling, where you don't even realize what you're doing to assist yourself in order to move more weight. And so I think I essentially cut my weight in half.
When you tried the straight arm pullover,
oh yeah. Yeah. It's a totally different movement when you do it in that way.
And the benefit there is you've got two variations of the same exercise that you can rotate in between. I will say the straight arm pullover will have better transfer to the bent arm as opposed to vice versa, based on specificity of elbow position, what the scap is forced to do more so. Yeah, it's interesting how the weight difference can really come into play.
I thought my arms were straight, but they were not. It's like, my arms are straight. Oh yeah, there's actually that little bit, and it makes a big difference in terms of how it feels, in terms of like just the weight you can use. And then you get the, are you flaring your ribs in order to try to like fake the range of motion? And so yeah, this was a humbling one for sure.
And it's good with resetting each rep of the pullover. Reset your elbow position consciously as you're learning it. Squeeze it, set it, repeat that over time.
Yeah, for sure. I am gonna go for more of a concept than a specific exercise. So I'm gonna say any kind of one arm, sort of across the body type of pull. Because I've done pull-ups, I've done all kinds of rows, bend over rows, barbell rows, dumbbell rows. For me, the lats have been a very stubborn area. And usually when an area is stubborn, it means other areas are taking over. So it would either be the traps where I'm doing my pull-ups and I'm sort of scrunched up and I'm pulling like this, or I'm pulling with my arms, biceps, or more triceps. And so it's been a little bit of a struggle to find movements and exercises that do target the lats. And so I would say what I found the most success with, and it's still a work in progress for sure, is having one arm stuff, and one arm because the lat wraps around the torso. And so it is impacted by how you move your rib cage. And so having something where I can kind of stretch out, but then also bring it back and contract has been very, very useful. So sometimes I do these with a cable. Sometimes I do these on just a cable row where you're trying to stretch and then contract, again with one arm at a time. And then sometimes I do these on like a hammer strength pull down with one arm, either just underhand or sometimes with a sort of neutral-ish grip with some flexibility. And I have found that doing these for higher reps and still tracking, but not being too aggressive with things has been very, very useful.
And it's great that you're introducing that concept with different angles being challenged. Diagonal, almost vertical pull, then you've got a horizontal version because the lats are divided into upper, middle, lower. And through doing this, when combined with a purely vertical and a purely horizontal, doing that cross body stretch to get the lat seems pretty comprehensive.
Yeah, it's been a game changer, and I've had times when you just feel the lat contract, you're like, oh, that's a lat, that's what it is. And I will never feel that on a pull-up. I will never feel that on like a barbell row or Yates row, because it just turns into the strong areas taking over the tension.
Particularly when you combine that cross-body stretch with a unilateral exercise, because now you can get some lateral flexion in the mix. So as you're reaching across the body, you can also laterally flex towards the hand, and then you can also squeeze
back,
in. Feels incredible, that contraction. I never felt that until I started doing cross-body exercises a couple years ago.
Yeah, so I actually first felt it when it was after like a huge back day, and then I turned around to try to look at something, and I was like, oh, I'm feeling my lat just from looking, like turning to look at someone. So I think a lot of people think that like this is the lats, like this is what they do. It's one of the things that they do, but there's a lot more to it than just moving the arm.
It's funny that the torso is something that when we train just at the gym, no one ever thinks about this or this. No. Everything we do is just forward, back.
Very sort of robotic.
And introducing that in, it really just feels good with your body. If you're not used to we're all so stiff and uptight, either we're sitting there all day doing a multi-hour YouTube video just hunched over, or we're trying to be standing upright because good posture and being assertive and dominant, but being loose with your body and working in some rotation amidst exercise is great too.
Yeah, for sure.
Learn how to mix calisthenics and weights with FitnessFAQs. Get the best of both worlds by shopping FitnessFAQs workouts. The spinal erectors, those two pillar muscles that run along your spine on either side, can make or break a physique. And I've been critiqued by the great Geoffrey Verity Schofield that this is one of my lagging body parts, for which I agree wholeheartedly. I'm under no delusion that I have the perfect physique, because we're always a body of improvement. And if you approach your life like that, I'm about to get really philosophical, then you will actualize your potential. But with the spinal erectors, the best exercise I've found for this is the 45-degree back extension. I have never experienced a pump in my spinal erectors from any other exercise that I do, because it's mainly pull-ups, rows for back, and the limiting factor isn't usually those spinal erectors. I tend to do chest-supported rows over, say, a bent-over barbell row. So you can imagine looking at that on paper, those spinal erectors are just chilling there. They're not getting the stimulus that they deserve to get bigger and stronger. So I do like the 45-degree back extension because it fits nicely on a leg day too. It's when I would personally prefer to put it in, because it's getting some hamstrings involved in the mix, some glutes. I like the way that you can change your technique to stretch and stress the spinal erectors differently. You can keep a completely flat back if that's your weapon of choice, or you can round over to try and curl yourself up and get more of a stretch through the lower back and spinal erectors as well. That one definitely gets more glutes. The girls love the just small range of motion, little flexed over 45-degree back extension. It's great how you can add weight to it as well, but that's also a limiting factor.
Could be.
Because you've got a few options for loading the 45. You can hold a weight plate down below you. You can also zercher it in the elbow pits, but with these delicate, soft elbow pits, you know, I tend to struggle with that one. I'm not used to it. And you've also got the behind the neck 45-degree back extension, which my mate over here, Geoffrey, has experience with, and I've got B-roll here of him just absolutely beasting on this. I'm motivated by it, but I personally find it really difficult to get into that rack position and keep it. But that's my choice because it's pretty good stimulus to fatigue. You don't get that axial loading like you do on RDL. Allows you to get more volume into the spinal erectors without it impacting everything else in your program. And it's a great accessory if you're someone who's skipping leg day and you're not doing those big exercises like your good mornings, your RDLs, but you still want some lower back, 45-degree back extension.
Yeah, I've done, super great exercise. I really like them. I don't do them as much anymore, but yeah, they're excellent. Like really, really, really good. Very, very fatigue friendly. And then they're also kind of like decompressing the spine. Whereas a lot of other big movements like RDLs, good mornings, it's more compression. And so yeah, being able to open up is a benefit.
And preferable over a horizontal back extension just based on convenience. There aren't many apparatuses in mainstream gyms where you've got a horizontal setup. You have to kind of cobble together some Smith machine with an elevation of a pad, then you're down. And the unanimous research on 45 versus horizontal, it appears the 45 tends to win out in most metrics too.
Yeah, that makes sense because it's more of a mid-range sort of ish kind of situation.
Even though counterintuitively the horizontal is more back.
Right.
But it's just more realistic to load up the 45, which if you just get away from the EMG studies, for Christ's sake, you can actually load the 45 more. So probably better for...
Yeah. And interestingly, you mentioned the bent over row. When Ronnie Coleman was doing his bent over rows, like ripping 5 plates, I think between sets, he said something like, got to build up the lower back. So a lot of people would think, oh, he's doing it for upper back or something. But actually the fact that he mentioned specifically the lower back means that, it's definitely doing a lot of work, just holding yourself up. And I would say that for a lot of calisthenics focused lifters, the erectors often get a little bit left behind, right? Because you're doing your vertical pulls, you're doing your rows, but there's not a whole lot where you have to support yourself and then a whole lot of weight in that position. Typical deadlifts are good. I like to go from a little bit elevated from a rack. They're great for traps, but then also you get a lot of erectors involved as well.
Rack pull?
Rack pull, yeah. So where I start from roughly the knees and then I'm allowing a little bit of rounding through the mid back and even a little bit towards the lower back. I do stay braced. That's a big thing where you're not just totally loose, you're staying tight, but then allowing some upper back rounding. And I find that this has been one of the better lower back movements that I've done.
Perfect. And the fear of flexing the lumbar spine, we just have to highlight, is not something that you should overly fear about if you patiently prepare your body over time.
Yep.
The research that came out on spinal flexion in the lower back, lumbar, was done on cadavers in pigs, and it was just bending the tissues back and forth. But you're a human, you have nerves, you have blood, you have, I hope, ligaments and discs and all this good stuff that can be nourished and getting stronger. It just comes down to just progressing it in a way that's, you know, your body can actually handle. Don't jump on and try and lift how much you see Jeff doing. Or people on Instagram, you'll scroll and see 100 kilo Jefferson curls, which would be an extreme example of the rack pull. You're not getting anywhere near that with the rack pull. Seems like an awesome movement.
Yeah, it's a good sort of stepping stone because you are getting spinal flexion, but because it's not as much overall range of motion, you can kind of control and feel where the range of motion is coming from. Whereas a Jefferson curl, which is where you're starting at the top and then you're really starting to round first your upper back, then your mid back, then your lower back, and then you're all the way down with a full hamstring stretch. Great movement, I've done it, I really enjoy it, but there's just a lot more moving parts because the hips are free to do whatever they want and it's just more range of motion.
Nice.
Well, there you go. That is the video. Thank you for watching. Because you finished the video, now you have all the information and you are now jacked. But if you want to learn even more and get even more jacked, you can watch another video here from both of us. Hope you enjoy.